All right. Welcome to Discipleship Training. We may have a lot of people walking back and forth and things like that because we're having a Memorial Day cookout today. And I'm so happy this will be our first get-together after this Corona stuff, and it sure does feel good to socialize again and be together again. So anyway, so just ignore it if you hear people talking and people walking back and forth and stuff. So last week we ended with looking at whether we were living from our carnal flesh, doing things in our own power, or trying to do the best we can, or living from our spirit man, being led by the Spirit, seeking God's guidance in matters, talking to Him and asking Him for His wisdom and His knowledge and instruction. Now, this week I had to battle, fear again. And I think that we're all experiencing some kind of fear during this thing, and however it's affecting you. And again, God just gently reminds me of His promises. Come to me and give it to me, and stand on my word, stand on my promises. And so it's like I just want to shake myself. You stupid. Just go back to His word. Stand on His promises. And anyway, but that's something we have to battle. That's the flesh battling against the Spirit, and we have to rely on the Spirit. And then I thought, you know what? For a few minutes, I switched back into, I got to figure this out. I got to figure this out. No, I don't have to figure it out. All I got to do is be led by the Spirit. Okay, but I have to go to the Father and ask Him, and tell Him the need, and ask Him, what to do, and ask Him for His wisdom. Destiny. We're having their Sunday school's in there. So anyway, I think it's really a slap in the face of Jesus that He died for us, and He set us free from all this garbage, and yet we tell Him ever sincerely, well, it's okay, I can handle it. I got this. Well, I don't know about you, but I've lived long enough to know I don't have anything. And so or we decide, well, I can live with this, and then we judge things based on the severity. Well, if it's really bad, okay, we need to get God involved. But if it's something we can live with, we don't want to get Him involved, and I don't know where we get that from. But anyway, so healing and provision was part of the atonement. And I know this is going to offend some people, but I believe it's true. If it was part of the atonement, then really we're slapping Him in the face, saying, hey, we don't need that. We don't need your healing. And we tell Him, well, I can live with that. But He says that I don't want you to live with that. I paid the price for that. And I took that beating. He didn't need to be beaten. The animals were not beaten prior to being sacrificed. That should tell us something. So the reason that Jesus, He says, but that He took those stripes on His back, and He was almost killed just by the beating, that he took those stripes on His back for that one reason, and that was for our healing. So now, if anybody thinks I'm not preaching to myself, I am. Okay? Because I battle the flesh just like everybody else is, and these are the things that I'm telling myself. And I'm battling, and I'm learning that I have to resist these things, and I have to take authority over these things, and I have to put these things in their place, and that's really what it's all about. And I myself am continually working on these things every day, to see God every day, to lay hold on His truths every day, and nobody can accuse me of not being honest with you, okay? Because I share openly my own struggles, my own downfalls, and you know what? There is nothing good, not one single solitary thing that's good in me. It's all Him, and so the more I get rid of the flesh, the more I yield myself to the Spirit, then the greater results I get. And so I'll never tell you something that I'm not trying to apply to my own life. Okay? And I'm not saying that I've arrived, I'm still trying to get there. And I think we will be till the day we die. But one thing that I've learned is that God really isn't too concerned about time. Now, that being said, I do feel like I do not believe that the end is going to be postponed, because if everybody repents, then he's going to postpone the end, or the end is going to be postponed because he's waiting on more people to come to repentance. That's not even logical, because the longer the world goes on, the more people there are in the world, the greater the population, which means the greater amount of people that are not going to be saved. So that's just not logical. So I believe the Bible bears us out that he is on a timeline, and he says a day is to God, a day is 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is a day. So I believe we're on a 7-day, which means 7,000 year timeline before the kingdom is set up. So we have the millennial reign as 1,000 years. We're coming up on the close of 6,000 years, which is the close of the 6th day. He rested on the 7th, and that will be the millennial reign. So yes, it's got to close soon, in my opinion. But on the other hand, in our own lives, I don't think he's real concerned with time. And if you're a Christian and have been one for any length of time, you will know that to be true. Because he will usually wait till the midnight hour, one strike before midnight, before, sometimes he'll answer your prayers. And it just seems like time is just not an issue. And I believe that God only created time because of Adam and Eve's sin. If there had been no time and nobody ever died, then I don't even think the world would exist today, because evil would have already, taken over. So he had to create time, and he had to make people's lives shorter, or they would just destroy all of us. Anyway, but that's one thing I've learned, and what happens is in our flesh we get so impatient, and we want things to work out ASAP. Now I know Barbara and John want a house ASAP. Okay, well, God just doesn't seem to be too concerned with them getting a house ASAP. Okay, and I've seen it over and over and over, and we all have, haven't we? Any of us who've lived any length of time, we want it now. We want it now. And he says, no, wait. And so he wants us to be patient for whatever reason. And I'll tell you when, however many years, I am no good at time. James and I are terrible. We'll say it's, last month, and it might have been 3 years ago. Or vice versa, Anyway, but when God told me one morning that he was freeing me up for his service, and I lived and breathed my job. I loved my business. I loved my job. I couldn't wait to get there. I couldn't wait for weekends to be over so I could get back to work on Mondays. I loved it. God gave me that job. And it was good to me, and I really loved it. But that day, I was in the bathroom, and he spoke to me clear as a bell and said, I'm freeing you up for my service. I thought it was going to be soon. Okay? Well, it was 3 years. And it was 3 years of agony, because he literally just sucked the love of my job, my business, right out of me that morning. And I went to work, and I didn't like it anymore. And so what I'm saying is he let me suffer basically for 3 years, okay? And I don't know why, I really don't, but it just took time, for everything, because there's more people involved than just me. And so I had a business partner, the business had to be sold, and he had to work with him and get him to a point, and literally he came to me and said, and I can't remember what and where in that 3 years, it was in that first year somewhere, he came to me and said he wanted to get out. That was a miracle right there. He had been in that business all of his life. Anyway, so what I'm saying is that there's a lot of factors at work. and like with y'all's house, well, it could be he's got you a house, but somebody's living in that house. So he's got to work with them to get them out of that house. Or if it's property, somebody's got to put the property up for sale. You know, whatever. There's a lot of factors, you know, going on at work, and so we just have to be patient. So I think, you know, in my situation, he let me know his plan. Okay, and I had no idea he was going to make me wait 3 years. Now, I would have liked to have had it move faster, or I would have liked to have maybe had he told me a little bit later on in the time frame, you know. But it was a process, and I can kind of see. I mean, at least. I mean, it took 2 years, a good 2 years to get everything in order to even get out. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, if he hadn't have told me and my partner might have come up and said, you know, I want out, I probably would have been devastated. Okay, because I was really happy. But anyway, and again, I think another thing I think about is I wasn't ready. So when he called me that day, spiritually, I wasn't obviously where I am today. Okay, and so I wasn't ready. I had to have that time of growth, you know, in him to get ready. And so I was learning, and during that time, and of course I still am. And if someone says that they aren't learning, well, then you need to kind of stay away from that person, okay? Because we all need to still be learning. And because God deals with believers every day of your life, if you let him and if you're open to him. And he'll show us more and more, and he'll reveal more and more. Now, one thing I thought Pastor Jeff made a comment on this week, and he said, you know, not one person on the face of the earth has all the answers. But it's so cool how we see God giving this person a little bit of information, this person a little, you know, and then of course now with the internet and stuff, all these people can come and share, you know, what God's given them. And I noticed, you know, it's not always your, you know, big mega church preachers, you know, if it's any of them. But he'll give the most obscure person, you know, that you've never heard of, you know, a word, and it comes true. Okay, and that's really cool. How God just, you know, he does that, and he's not picking out just one person, and you know why? Because that one person couldn't take it. Pride would overtake them, you know, and so he gives everybody just, you know, a little bit of information or spiritual secrets. Now today we all have the Holy Ghost, and we need to be going to him. We need to be going to the Lord and saying, you know, asking him for a download, asking him for wisdom, asking him for the gift of wisdom and the gift of knowledge in situations, and ask him to give us information. And just like I did about the coronavirus, I asked him to tell me what in the world is going on. And this was, you know, when it first started. And that's what he said to me was my promises. That's all he said, my promises. And so that was not what I wanted to hear, okay? But as the weeks went on, he kept reminding me of that, and I didn't forget that. And then every time I start to get afraid, I would remember, well, my promises. Go back to my promises. What are his promises? That he's never going to leave us nor forsake us. No plague shall come nigh our dwelling. He's going to be with us. But I've learned one thing that plagues man, and it's something that we have to let go, and that is pride. And years ago, we've been in church, you know, 3 times a week until that became out of vogue, going 3 times a week. But we, you know, ever since we were dating, we've been in church, and I sang on several praise teams in several different churches. And I'll just be honest with you, that was where my heart was. I wanted to sing more than anything. And growing up, my dad and my uncle, they always sang in the choir at church. And then when I got old enough, I got to